sorry, you about to say something. Go ahead.
I would.
Eating my cake in front of the crowd.
John, why you get nobody else to take it? Oh, you got a brother that loves
You got to help yourself. Oh, where you want me? Because I took the initiative. That's what I did.
You know, back in the day, as a bully, I would have just taken the cake. You know that?
Yeah, come on with it. Come on with it.
I was big enough to be a bully.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the Shelby County Board of Education's March 26 Board Business Meeting. Ms. Anthony, please call the roll.
Board Member McKissick. Board Member Orgel. Board Member Woods.
Here.
Board Member Love.
Here.
Board Member McCormick. Board Member Green.
Present.
Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman.
Present.
Board Chair Avant.
Here,
You have 6 board members present.
we have a quorum. We will now have the presentation of the color guard. Today's color guard is from Kingsbury High School. The national flag is being carried by Cadet Galindo, Tennessee state flag carried by Cadet Hood. The flags are protected by Cadet Morales and Cadet Lopez.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Color. Right. Face. Forward. March. March.
Please remain standing. We'd like to ask We'd like you to keep in your thoughts the families of 2 students, one from Doubletree Elementary who passed away today, and a student who was hit by a car who attended Haven View. We ask you to keep their families in your thoughts. We also ask you to keep Board Member Joyce Doris Coleman's family, as they have had a loss this week as well. You may be seated. For tonight's spotlight on the arts, we recognize that nationally those students who benefit most from the arts are receiving sometimes the least. In Shelby County Schools, we are committed to making sure all students have the opportunity to participate in high-quality arts learning, and every SCS elementary student receives the ORF music instruction. As an example of this concept is featured tonight. The ORF Music All-City students present A Taste of All-City 2019 Cascades of Harmony. The students performing tonight represent Germantown Elementary, which includes Bethany Mahia and Terry Watts, ORF music teachers Kimberly Sanders, music teacher Kimberly Sanders, and and Principal Kimberly Sanders. Sorry, that reads awkwardly. Idlewild Elementary, Alan Moody, ORF music teacher, and Jonathan Humphreys as principal. And then Snowden School, Lindsay Mullins and Betsy Carter are ORF music teachers, and Jamie Stahl Smith is principal. The All-City 2019 Cascades of Harmony are co-chaired by Betsy Carter and Bethany Mahia. Will be represented in concert on Thursday, April 4th, 7 p.m. at the Cannon Center for the Performing Arts with nearly 325 4th and 5th graders from almost 70 SCS elementary schools. The concert is free and open to the public. You are all invited to attend. Here are the Orff Music All City 2019 students from Germantown, Iowa, Snowden, performing on the concert selections Waltzing Matilda, arranged by Bethany Mahaya. Take one more bow. Take one more bow. Very good. You all did an excellent job. Excellent job. Thank you so much for coming before us tonight at the board to share your wonderful gifts. Next, we also have a special presentation by our county trustee, Ms. Regina Morrison-Newman, in Regions Bank. Ms. Newman, if you could come to the podium, as well as anyone that's represented from Regions Bank.
To the board and the attendees, Superintendent Ray. Several years ago, 5 to be precise, a partnership was reached between Shelby County Schools and the trustee's office and Regions Bank. While I am the county's banker, they are the county's bank. And they bid on that and they received that privilege, and the county has a contract with them. So one of the things that this partnership has done is allow the vendors of Shelby County Schools to get paid by credit card, wherein they get paid faster and in the process of doing so, the bank provides a rebate to Shelby County Schools annually. And over the course of the last 5 years, that rebate has totaled $1,088,000 for the education of the students. So today we have our annual big check representing that rebate, and that amount today is $148,000, $796.80. So our friends from Regions over here are Jackson Parish and David Porras, and they're here to present the big check.
I ask board members to come forward and take a picture. And Trustee Newman, if you could come up as well, please.
Certainly.
The question is now on the approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like to pull 3 items. 11.28, Endemia, sorry, I have my glasses. Security, USA. 11.34, HVAC, Oak Haven Elementary School.
Are you pulling these or moving them off the consent agenda?
If it's consent, we haven't gotten to that yet.
Edemia, but we're pulling, right? Yes,
Okay.
entirely.
So that's 1128.
1128, 11.34, 11.36. Those 2 are going to move to the action items.
Okay. Board Member Love.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to add a resolution of the Shelby County Board of Education in opposition to vouchers.
I'm sorry. Say it one more time. I apologize.
Without any objection, I would like to add a resolution of the Shelby County Board of Education in opposition to vouchers.
Seeing no objections, that item is added to the agenda. Okay, are we ready to proceed with the vote, Ms. Anthony?
Board Member McKissick. Board Member Woods. Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member Green. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 7 votes in the affirmative.
That agenda is approved. We're now, before we move to public comments, I do just want to take a point of privilege. There is someone who actually misplaced her phone. It's an iPhone with a pearl speckled cover. If you found that phone, if you could just bring it up to the front. She is looking for a phone, and if you're able, if you did find it or come across it, please make sure to bring it up front. Thank you. We'll now move to public comments. Tennessee law makes no specific provisions for the participation of the public at the meetings of local boards of education. However, board policy provides that not more than 30 minutes of each regular business and special call meeting shall be devoted to public comment. Speakers must state their name, home address, organization he or she is representing, if any, and subject of the presentation before they are permitted to proceed. Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs that concern them. Speakers are asked to refrain from using names of personnel or names of persons connected with the school system, particularly when lodging a complaint. Speakers will not be permitted to engage in gossip, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. The chairman shall have the authority to terminate the remarks of any individual who is disruptive or does not adhere to board rules. The timer projected on the screen to your right and directly behind the board will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. When you hear 2 bells, your time has expired.
2 minutes each.
Each speaker will have 2 minutes for comments. The first 3 names are Claudette Boyd, Tequila Rucker, and Keith Williams.
My name is Claudette Boyd. I live at 713 Burstone Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38109. I'm a stakeholder and a community activist and alumni of Melrose High School. Today I'm concerned about the lack of transparency of the SCS. On my last visit, I asked for SCS administrative staff to attend the Orange Mountain Educational Conference on February 2nd at the Orange Mountain Community Center. No one from SCS administration took time or opportunity to attend our meeting. Our SCS board member, Ms. Coleman, and 2 school principals from Melrose and Dunbar, however, did attend. And we had a good discussion about the future of schools in Orange Mountain. We have a problem, Dr. Ray. One of the problems is we have no open communication with your staff or administration. Number 2, we have no organization chart to determine accountability and responsibility. Number 3, we talked about appointments of principals to schools. And I do believe that stakeholders are deeply invested in the community, thereby must be a part of vetting principals. In the past, many stakeholders participated with SCS. However, now we only hear about new principal assignments through rumors and gossip. And that's not a good way for business to be taken care of. So I'm here today and want to know why. Why do we have to hear official information through rumors and gossip? A principal is a vital part of success for a school. As a stakeholder and taxpayers, we must be included in these processes in order to have a successful school. Dr. Ray, please address these issues in order for the community to feel that you will do right by us, and that if you support the community, I guarantee you the community will support you. Thank you.
Ms. Rucker?
Good evening. Tequila Rucker, President of the United Education Association of Shelby County. I would like to thank Superintendent Ray and district personnel for allowing teacher voice on the Shelby County School Calendar Steering Committee. After months of collaborating, we were able to create a calendar that would be beneficial to educators and students in the district. Today, I speak on behalf of the thousands of teachers, educators within the district in support of Calendar B. We also know that the data that we have received, Calendar B highly exceeded any of the other calendars that were presented. And over the past years, we have used those survey and information that we have collected from the community, parents, and stakeholders within the district to help us make that decision. I ask that you continue to move in that direction in support of Calendar B. And if at any point that there's a issue with the process in which the calendar needs to go forward in upcoming years, that you consider visiting that process, but allow this calendar to go forth, because that is what the community has asked for. Thank you.
I'm Keith Williams. I am the Executive Director of the Memphis-Shelby County Education Association, the largest freestanding union in this state. And congratulations, Sister Althea Green, a former educator and member who's serving on the school board for the first time tonight. I have decided I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris for president. She today said that every teacher in this nation will get a $13,500 raise. And I think that's a wonderful ask and tell to get the teachers to vote for her. So I'm throwing my support for her, even knowing that it probably won't happen. But I'm here to say this, Dr. Ray, and to the school board. There's a process, it has been a process in place. As a matter of fact, when I was the president of the Teachers Union, we signed an agreement with this district that stated that we would be a part of the innovative and turnaround model in I-zone schools. In that model, principals would be vetted and teachers would be vetted if schools were chosen to go into the I-zone, and it would be a process to it. And that process would include 50% of the staff having to leave the school and the principal having to leave if the school is failing. Now, if the principal leaves a failing school, surely he would not go to another school, whether it is failing or not. I have been told that that is the case in this situation. We have had principals who are going to have to leave a failing school that they have caused the demise of and will be reassigned to a school that is in good standing. I am here to speak in complete and total opposition to that, because if you have destroyed one school, there is no reason for you to destroy another one. And the record is clear on that principle. So I think that you should revisit that. Also, teachers and community leaders have always had a hand in at least serving on the committees to select principals. That seemingly has gone away as well. It appears that we are getting principals appointed in some strange and coveted way, but we want to be a part of that process. The community should be a part of it. The alumni associations should be a part of it, and the teaching staffs in those schools. I urge you to revisit the way you are assigning, appointing, and anointing principals in this school system. Thank you.
I'm going to call the next three names: Charles Scott, George Thomas, and Lisa Jorgensen.
Charles Scott, 3689 Huckleberry Street, 38116. Chief is a hard man to follow behind. Again, to the board chair, board commissioners, and Superintendent Ray, thank you for the opportunity. This is our 24th consecutive school board meeting. That's 2 years that we've been able to speak here at the Shelby County School Board meeting. We're proud of that fact. Again, in your folders, you'll see some recaps of some of the activities that since the February's meeting. We'd like to congratulate Ms. Green on her appointment to the School Board District Seat 2. We welcome the opportunity to work with her. Also, you see in your photos some information where National PTA and all local units are celebrating Public School Week, March 25th to the 29th. And we want to congratulate all the teachers, all the staff, all the superintendent, everyone involved in support of public school. Also in your folder, you see the front page of the Tennessee PTA newsletter that has some pictures of some of the students that attended the Storm the Hill event. As I mentioned before in the last meeting, that we would be holding our elections for our new officers and president on April the 4th. For the 2019-20th term. It's my hope that at the next meeting I'll be able to introduce the new president-elect to you at the April school board meeting. Also, we'll be hosting our student safety poster and citizenship contest here at the board auditorium, and as always, you are invited to attend. And finally, in conclusion, just to give you some recent information, the council today consists of 14 schools, 2,467 members. That's an increase of 33% of 616 members since last year. Again, I thank you for this opportunity.
Good afternoon. My name is George Thomas, and I'm a president of the Education Equal Opportunity Group. You may have a program booklet called Project Save a Student that I have asked that each board member have a copy of. For the last 18 years, the EEOG provides leadership and personal development training to high school students to make sure that we would provide direct access to business leaders from the public and private sector that our students can actually emulate. I want to thank the leadership of Dr. Ray to approve our opportunity to continue to engage with Shelby County school students. This year, 47 students came to Nashville for a 3-day leadership conference to make sure that we're doing our best to align young people with different opportunities to make sure that they're on the right track to actually earn their own money, to pay their own way. I want to thank the board and the leadership and the principals for collaborating with the EEOG. More importantly, I want to make sure that we are in a posture of making sure young people either understand the choices that they have. Either you can, one, actually blend in with the fabric or you can blend in with the fabric of your community, or you can rail against the things that you see. I feel like it's imperative and important to make sure that we expose young people to different career options, career pathways and pipelines so young people can actually earn their own money and pay their own way. We have worked with Shelby County Schools for the last 10 years, and we look forward to having more support from not only the superintendent, but the school board as well. And I want to thank you for my time. Again, my name is George Thomas with the Education Equal Opportunity Group. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Jorgensen with United Education Association, 743 Beasley, Memphis, Tennessee, 38111. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I'm here again because Memphis is known, or has been historically known, as the city of good abode. The city of good abode in Shelby County. Memphis is celebrating the 200th year as a city, and it's been 154 years since slavery was abolished. Martin Luther King was assassinated in this here city more than 50 years ago. He was here to fight for economic justice, a living wage for employees of the city's public sector. Last May, although Shelby County Schools raised the minimum wage for full-time employees to a living wage of $15, part-time employees such as nutrition professionals and substitute teachers were exempted. Yesterday, the Shelby County Commission passed a resolution, yesterday, March 25th, 2019, asking that all public sector institutions in Shelby County raise the minimum wage for all public sector employees, including part-time, to $15 an hour. I'm here to ask you to please follow the recommendation, and thank you so very much.
Art Scott, Alex Benz, and Khadija Kimbrough.
Distinguished board members, Chair Avant, Superintendent Ray. As teacher, my name is Art Scott, 7238 Great Tree Trail, Cordova, Tennessee. I am representing the United Education Association. I am the high school for the board. So representing all high school teachers in Shelby County. And as teachers, we're tasked to use data to direct our teaching. And we're also tasked to use many sources of information and text to create lessons. Commissioners, Dr. Askew did a wonderful job. She used many stakeholders to create these calendars: parents, administrators, students, and most importantly, teachers. Then, like a good educator, she used a survey, a good survey that was available to all stakeholders of Shelby County Schools. And this survey generated data for decision making. Y'all have seen the data, and the data overwhelmingly supports one calendar. Why does this data so overwhelmingly support? To echo what President Rucker said, it's good for education. Board members, I've got a student load of 150 students. Of those 150 students, I have to give 18 grades a quarter. I have to have time to grade, do meaningful grades for those 150 students. Right now, it's hard to do without really eating into our personal time as high school teachers. With these half days, we can do our students right, provide meaningful feedback to our students, and collaboratively plan, and make better lessons for our students. We can address all these other issues, But board members, I respectfully beg you to seriously consider Calendar B. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Alex Benz. I'm a special education teacher in Shelby County, and I live at 2070 Harbert Avenue, 38104. I'm also the co-chair of the Wraparound Services team for 901. We're a collective of educators, organizers, and community members. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of our organization. As the budget process gets started, we'd like to partner and work with you and folks in the community to see the following. Specific funds and a plan for additional social emotional learning support and services, such as psychologists, counselors, and social workers. Specific funds and a plan for the translation of report cards in Spanish for the start of the next school year. Specific funds and a plan for the scaling of restorative justice. And we're pleased to see that the district brought back behavior specialists to prevent out-of-school suspensions. And we previously have confirmed support of Commissioners Whaley and Sawyer in securing funds for our goal. And going forward, we are interested in being partners with the work, and just as a special education teacher, I'm called to be an advocate for my students, and that's why I felt moved to come tonight and give that testimony. So thank you for your time. Have a good
Hello, my name is Khadija Kimbrough, and I am a junior of Melrose High School. First, I would like to thank Dr. Ray for everything that he has done for us, but I have a few concerns. Melrose High School is a small school, and a lot of opportunities are taken away from our school because we are a small school. Our program, JROTC, has been taken away from us, and many other things. I would like to see more of that be put back into Melrose because we are a small school, but we deserve as many opportunities as Whitehaven or the other schools that get to keep their programs. I also would like to see a lot more classes around honors. Like we had honors programs that were taken away from us, classes such as college courses. And I would like to see that back in because we do have students who really want to learn and who really want to be prepared for college. And it's important that we get that we get all the valuable knowledge that we get from our teachers. It's important to get that and gain that access. Also, I would like to speak on how my concern is that a lot of students don't get the opportunity because we don't have enough people trying to help us. A lot of students want to we don't have a lot of students attending participating in anything because we don't have programs for them. A lot of students, not every student wants to be in the band, not every student wants to play a sport. We have some students who want to be JROTC, who want to do mechanics, who want to train in different places. We need those. We need those in Melrose because we are a small school, but we deserve the opportunities also. Thank you.
Khadija, it takes a lot of courage to be able to come up and speak and advocate for the things you want. Good job. Next three names, Michaela Kirk, Sharonda Thompson, and Dr. Lynette Williams.
My name is Michaela Kirk, and I'm a student at Melrose High School. We from Melrose would like to thank Dr. Ray and the board for giving us opportunities such as Leadership Melrose and for sponsoring our EEOG trip. We also would like to see more hands-on programs that guide students into leadership roles. As a future senior, I would like to have the chance to gain more opportunities that can prepare me for college and that can help me start my life after college. As class of 2020, I would also like to say thank you for what you have done and what you are planning to do to help me grow as an individual and as a future leader of Memphis. Thank you.
Thank you, Malia. Well done. Yes. Just want to make sure to give our students their acknowledgement when they come out and do what they do so well. Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Yes, ma'am. Sharonda Thompson, 2787 Stonehurst Avenue, 38127. In step 3 of Dr. Ray's 90-day plan, culture building, he states, establishing a more respectful and positive culture centered on teaching and learning that more intentionally includes the voices of students and teachers. Calendar B does this. Tonight you will cast your votes. Will your vote as a body contradict step 3 in the plan for Destination 2025 and marginalize the voices of teachers across the district? Teachers are saying Calendar B gives them the recharge they need to ensure that our students reach Destination 2025 and become globally competitive. So tonight we are faced with the conundrum of saying you value teacher voice. Will you allow it to prevail? I've been told you should follow the tongue of the mouth and not the tongue of the shoe, meaning you can say you support teachers, but what are your actions or your votes going to say? A former classroom teacher who the board unanimously voted to sit amongst them is now our superintendent, and he recommended this calendar as well. I encourage you as a board and board members to think about how it must have felt in the civil rights era to be in a position where you are being told your vote matters, you vote on an issue, and it wins the popular vote. But elected representatives, the Electoral College, determine your fate will be different from what the majority of the people wanted. Now you feel disenfranchised from the privilege or the right to be heard. Your vote tonight will catapult the district's relationship with teachers. Which direction will you take it? I hope you take the right approach. Thank you all again for your time, and thank you, Dr. Ray, for what you're doing in step 3 of Destination 2025 to hear student and teachers' voices.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Lynette Williams, 5175 Horn Lake Road, and I'm a community advocate and the CEO of Reentry Resource Group Incorporated. And I am partnering with A Fresh Start to a New Beginning Incorporated, which are 2 nonprofits that help ex-offenders and their families in our community. And with governmental agencies, private and public funding, we need facilities for our operation. And you have at least 3 schools that are going to be demolished, and we want to have access to those buildings. What we have is a proposal to actually use those buildings. Vance Junior High School, we want to have administrative offices, a credit union, testing, clinics, and our health and fitness center. Rains Haven, we want to have a business center with training, neighborhood businesses, a business incubator for home-based businesses, and e-commerce. We want to have the Graves campus for early childhood and a daycare center. We want a 24-hour daycare center on the Graves Center site, in addition to pre-K to 3rd grade, and we want to implement a program called Read to Succeed, because we know if you don't learn how to read by the 3rd grade, you will be in the pipeline for prison. And we also want to have parenting classes at that location as well. And we want to really engage at least 120 ex-offenders, and we have a budget so they can have a salary of at least $23,000 a year, so they won't be a poverty statistic when they are released from prison. And so we think this would help the recidivism rate as well as help our community economically. And we want you to invest in our program, and I have all the numbers for the facilities committee as far as the cost and everything as far as the program. But we are definitely wanting to do that instead of you going to a private company to do your demolition. Thank you.
Next 2 names, Brenda Thompson and Carla Alonzo.
Okay, I'm speaking on behalf of Miss Brenda Thompson. She is the vice principal
I'm sorry,
of
Miss
Haven
Dr.
View.
Williams, we're not able to speak on behalf of any other folk.
Well,
any
I
other
just
people.
wanted to mention, she just wanted me
Dr.
to.
Williams,
Okay.
let's follow protocol.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
I have my name and her name down there.
Yes, so you can only sign in for one person. If Miss Thompson is not here to speak on behalf of herself.
She just wanted me to mention the student that got hit.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Carla Alonzo.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carla Monzon from Overton High School, currently CEO and founder of Theory Behind the Notes, an organization targeting middle school students from SES for high school music theory readiness. I'd like to further invite you for our Student Congress Save conference, Students Against Violence Everywhere, held at the Agri Center April the 9th.
Hello, my name is Charity Johnson, and I'm also a member of Student Congress. We as Student Congress are all about promoting positive change within the Shelby County school environment. We will also fight against violence everywhere by inviting people out to the SAVE conference. We hold it every year to encourage other students to become leaders in their school system, to make sure they impact change and impact a further program that will help their school grow.
Thank you.
We're now on the approval of minutes of the previous meetings. The question is on the approval of minutes from the February 26th, 2019 business meeting and approval of the minutes for the March 19th, 2019 work session. Can I get a motion? A motion by Mr. McCormick and a second by Ms. Love. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel. Aye. Board Member Woods. Aye. Board Member Love. Aye. Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Green. Aye. Board Member Bibbs. Aye. Board Member Coleman. Aye. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
The minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to the chair report. I just wanted to thank the administration and also our communications department for their support of the 3rd Annual Girls Summit. We had about 400 middle school girls who got to participate with WNBA players, professional wrestlers, female wrestlers. They went through a rotation of about 4 different stations that included rugby, soccer, basketball, Grizz Fit Nation, and it was wonderful to see how delighted these girls were to participate in this particular program today. It was phenomenal, and so thank you to the staff for all of your support. Thank you to all of the schools that brought out girls, in upwards of 30 to 40 girls per school. We had 14 different schools represented throughout the district, and it was a phenomenal day to see girl power in action, which I love to see. We'll now move on to Academic Performance Committee.
Thank you, Chair. So I would like to, before I get into academics, let me first just take the point of privilege to thank the communications team, the FACE team, and all volunteers and staff members and everyone who was in attendance Saturday night at the SES Alumni Hall of Fame Gala, where we had such a great time, and we had an opportunity to induct 5 people into our outstanding Hall of Fame. We inducted Keith Norman, Barbara Cooper, Claude Humphrey, Tony Matlock, and Bert Prosterman-Wolf. And hopefully those videos will be online, hopefully in the morning. So then that way for people who are not able to attend, will be able to attend, actually to see the videos that we played Saturday night. And I'm just very thankful that staff members absolutely made a vision come to life. So thank you again. Now on to academics. In our Academic Performance Committee meeting, we discuss school calendars, which seems to be a hot topic tonight. We will be voting on that a little bit later. The KPIs that will be shown today around K3 progress, CCTE, our ACT playbook. That was a great presentation, and some work is already happening coming out of Dr. Bert's shop, and the promotion and retention policy with an emphasis in 2nd grade, which we'll have more discussion later on tonight. Thank you.
Audit, Budget, and Finance Committee report.
So far, we've had 2 committee meetings engaging colleagues as well as the superintendent and his team around the budget. Deputy Superintendent Lynn Johnson has done a great job of presenting where we are, what's the current gap, and the challenge that he and his team has undertaken to start to close that gap. Obviously, part of this process is the constant engagement with the county commission, as well as the county mayor and their administration. We do plan to have at least 1 to 2 more meetings internally to start looking at what are the concessions that this body is prepared to make, as well as get a clear understanding of the new investments that are needed in order to reach Destination 2025. Upon that process commencing, we do plan to have at least 3 community engagement dates that we will disseminate publicly around engaging the public around the budget process. That process should take place during the month of April. And Chief Johnson, correct me if I'm wrong, but during the month of May, is that when we anticipate presenting to the County Commission? And that just kind of frame up the timeline as far as what we're up against from a budget standpoint. But obviously, it's an ongoing process with the administration. But Mr. Superintendent, Madam Chair, that concludes my report for the day.
Thank you. Capital Needs and Facilities Committee report.
I don't have a report, but there's a lot of items on the agenda that we discussed at the meeting, so probably no reason to rehash the items. We met 2 weeks ago, I believe, and we got an update on our new headquarters, among other things, and an update on all of our construction projects. So they'll go over that.
Good movement on our capital improvement projects. Mr. Orgel, Beth Phelan, Chief Phelan. Community Outreach and Engagement Committee report.
Thank you, Chair. So on last Monday, we did have a budget update committee meeting. Department update committee meeting, where the Seed Department, Security, Office of Student Affairs, Office of Student Services and Communications did a presentation. And I just want to go over briefly some of the questions that board members had in that meeting. And I will say that we talked about, we still have a high number of students who are suspended for small infractions. I know that Superintendent Ray is working on that, so I do look forward to see a plan in the near future of how we're going to address that. Bullying issues. We were also made aware that the project graduation funding is going to be dissolved, and because that is a program that's very beneficial for our students, I would like to explore the options of putting that in the budget. We discussed having a calendar for culture exposure. What we know is we have a high number of students throughout Shelby County who are not just from Memphis, but from other countries, and we want to make sure that we expose those cultures the same way we do Hispanic Heritage Month and Black History Month. I know somebody spoke about the translation services. We do want to make sure that anything that we provide is given in a way that for our parents to read. Another question that I know has been asked several times about the budget for the Hispanic events and also for the Black History Month events, and we do look forward to hearing those questions. But in closing, we did hear a report from the Security Office and also from the Truancy Office, and I want to make board members aware that there is an MOU in place dealing with the DA's office in Shelby County Schools, where they are charged to help support us with truancy. After looking at the MOU and receiving several complaints from parents, what we found out is the DA's office is violating the policy. So after a student misses 5 days, and it does not have to be consecutively, the parent is told to bring his or herself and their child to 201 Poplar. So there has been no contact from the school, which we have a policy that states the first point of contact should be with the school. So I did address that in the meeting. I did address that with the superintendent. I also know that in the MOU, there's supposed to be a plan of action in place. So what I would like to suggest is that that plan of action is submitted so board members can know and understand what that plan of action is, and whatever we need to do to address this issue, because I think it's not only demoralizing, but I think it's disrespectful to have our children and our parents to report to 201 Poplar for truancy when we know a high number of times the children are not truant. I do know that we have a high number of truant children, and we need to work together to address those issues to find out why our children are not coming to school. So, Superintendent, I'm demanding that we look at this contract because you are the overseer. I'm demanding that you look at this contract, put a plan of action in place, and we need to find another place to address truancy issues besides introducing our youngest children as young as 5 years old to the criminal justice system when we have not made the first point of contact, which is supposed to start at the schools. Thank you.
Mr. Orgel?
So, Superintendent, or Ms. Urban, you had mentioned, Stephanie mentioned, Ms. Love mentioned state law. Is there not state law that says if you have a child between the age of 6 and 17, and maybe my memory's foggy, that as a parent you're required for them to attend school?
Yes.
And is there also not state law that if, I remember Michigan was another state, because we had some training about 6 or 7 years ago, that the state law was also that if your child wasn't in school, that you could also be denied benefits.
Yes.
So I actually met with Harold Collins and the district attorney, Amy Wyrick, about 5 years ago to discuss truancy. Kevin may have been there, I can't remember. And the problem is so profound that when they do prosecute truancy, and this is maybe old data, it takes several years for it to even reach the courts. And I don't even know that they observe the 5-day rule. I think they even stretched it a little further. But besides the social cost of not teaching children and then making our teachers suffer because kids are itinerant and in and out of classrooms and they have to catch up, we should do everything we can with the district attorney's office to come up with a program to ensure that our children are in school, and we should vigorously ask them to enforce this and come up with the right procedure where we don't expose our children to the wrongs of them not attending school. I think it's the parents' fault. It's not usually the child's fault. And we should ask people to be responsible. But if you think about it, we probably have 2,000 to 5,000 chronic truants. And if you miss the 20-day period, or you just have somebody that doesn't go to school, it could be costing us $20 to $50 million a year that we could spend on teacher salaries, we could spend on programs, and the money's sitting there and it's available through the BEP, and we're not getting it because we're not vigorously enforcing it. It would almost be worth us funding part of the Attorney General's office, District Attorney's office, with officers to go out and pick up the parents and make them put their children in school, and to vigorously prosecute those that don't put their kids in school, because the social cost lasts long beyond 6 to 17-year-olds. It's going to carry on till they're young adults and adults, and the problems that we know happens when people aren't educated. So I'm glad you brought that up. We should find a nice way to do it, but hard love's not bad either. And anyway.
So, oh, okay.
So thank you, Ms. Love and Mr. Orgel. So Ms. Love did bring this item to my attention, and as far as the MOU, I think it was MOU that was from the previous administration, that we are working with the team to actually peruse and figure out, you know, all the fault lines. But I know the Chief of Staff and we're going to meet with District Attorney Wyrick, and also members of our team. I know Chief Darling and probably Dr. Whitelaw as well, just to figure out what's best for students and to ensure that our students attend school every day.
Ms. Love.
So, yes, Chair, thank you. I think I need to clarify some things. So, the complaints that I received, Mr. Orgel, were based on parents who submitted doctor's notes or excuses. The issue was that the information was not inputted correctly. So I am well aware that our children must be in school every day to learn. The issue comes into place when parents submit doctor's excuses or handwritten notes verifying why their child was not there, but the information is not inputted correctly, which generates a letter to the DA's office, which in turn a letter is sent to the parent, which means a parent has to come to 201 Poplar to answer to why their child is not truant, when in all actuality their child is not truant. Like I said, it's disrespectful for us to have parents. I'm not talking about the parents who are truant. I'm speaking of the parents who have did the proper notification, but the system that we operate is not operating correctly, which is causing parents who work have to take off of work and bring their children to 201 Poplar to answer to a charge of them being truant, when in all actuality they're not truant. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we need to address right now.
Thank you, Ms. Love. So we're going to move on so we can get through the committee reports. Evaluation committee report.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. We did have a meeting with the on the superintendent search, and we have come up with a timeline to select the executive firm that will handle the search, and hopefully we'll be reporting next meeting that selection.
Okay. Thank you. Internal Board Operations Committee report, Ms. McKissick.
Thank you, Board Chair. Before I jump into the report, I'd actually like to acknowledge Olivia Jackson. Are you still here? Your mom? Is Olivia? Okay, did she have to leave? But we had a student who actually sent me a text on Sunday evening asking me when was the board meeting, because she wanted to be a part of it. And so I wanted to acknowledge her. Oh, there you are. You're being shy. There she is. Olivia, she's outstanding. She's a senior graduating a whole year early from Northwest Prep, coming up in just a couple of months, and just really impressed with her. I met her when I went to go tour Northwest Prep and just saw a shining star. So just want to acknowledge her and thank her for you know, reaching out to me via text, asked when was the school board meeting. She wanted to come and be a part of it. So thank you, Olivia, for coming out tonight. As for the IBO meeting, we met on March 7th and discussed 4 policies. One on safe drinking water, 3008, policy 4017 on suspension and dismissal of teachers, and policy 5013, promotion and retention. Those were all discussed. A briefing, the promotion and retention discussion policy was based on discussions during the academic committee meeting, so that was a follow-up to that. And those policies will all be presented this evening by Ms. Maria Stewart in the first reading. And our next IBO meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 9th at 4.
Thank you, Ms. McKissick. Legislative Advocacy Committee report.
Thank you, Chair. We did meet on last week, and the agenda consisted of our Charter Commission bill that is set to be voted on in the state. And this bill basically will allow the state of Tennessee to create a charter commission board where if the school system does not, well, if an LEA does not approve a charter school, they can go to the commission and ask for approval, and they can operate in the LEA in which they requested the first charter. We also discussed the parent opt-out request, and this was another bill that was passed last year where the Shelby County School District is required to hand over all parent information to any charter school that requests that information. There is a link on the registration website where parents who, if they do not want their information shared, can request to be opted out. But I do want to make sure the listening public knows if you have not requested to opt out, any charter school that requests your children's information, the Shelby County School Board is obligated by law to pass that information over. I also want to make sure that the public is aware that the voucher bill, better known as the ESA, Educational Savings Account, that will be up for vote tomorrow in the House Committee at 8 a.m. in Nashville. I strongly urge those who can go to go, because I'm not sure if the public actually understands what's actually going on. Shelby County Schools is one of the LEAs that will be included in this voucher bill. And in this voucher bill, Although it states that it's directly pointing to priority schools, that's actually not correct. If this bill is passed, any child who attends a Shelby County school, whether it be Whitehaven, Cordova, Ridgeway, they will be eligible for this educational savings account. In my opinion, this will drain the public school system. In my opinion, there is no data, no research that shows that a private school is better or that children come out learning more. So I know I will be attending tomorrow, giving my support against this bill because I believe that Shelby County Schools has the best options for all children. Thank you.
8.9 Procurement Committee meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am newly elected to the Procurement Committee bill, so I do not have a report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. 8.10 Superintendent Ray, your report.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm waiting on the video to show. Kudos to Chief Small and her team of Human Resources for holding the pep rally to kick off recruitment and staffing season. We had the Whitehaven Drumline and East High School cheerleaders. They performed, and there was so much excitement. Of course, this aligns with step 3 in my entry plan. This event promoted teamwork, collaboration, and an effort to improve morale, reinforce positive culture. And I was fortunate to attend this event, and I'm very committed to having our goal of 0 teaching vacancies on day 1. Last year, we started the school year with less than 70. So we were very close. So in the next couple of weeks, I will be actually hitting the road, leading by example to recruit teachers from neighboring states. Next month, we will provide the board an update of 1920 staffing processes and highlight new, exciting HR programs focused on continued development and growth of our teacher pipeline. There's more to come. You gonna play a little of it? So, I mean, the staff was very excited, so we just want to show a glimpse. So he's saying, go, fight, recruit. So that's what the HR team is gonna do. Thank you. So I'll be remiss if I didn't personally thank the board member, Bibbs, for leading another exquisite alumni Hall of Fame gala. I think she did a magnificent job. Saturday's event was an example of the great work that's happening in our district and importance of believing in our students. The 5 honorees are true leaders and experts in their fields that demonstrate everything that's right in the community. Thanks to all the board members for actually being there. Thanks to School C for supporting our vision. And thanks to all the corporate sponsors for their support, which directly helps our students and teachers. Personally, acknowledge our business partner, International Paper, for receiving the Community Champion Award for all of the support over the last few years. On Friday, I had the opportunity to attend the SES Teacher of the Year inaugural award ceremony. I want to thank Rachel Addison, which is in the audience, and the PD department just put on an outstanding event. So we acknowledge the 3 teachers, Mr. Thomas Denson, Cherokee Elementary, Miss Alicia Clark, Crump Elementary, and Miss Mary McIntosh Central High School, along with the outstanding principals for each school. So it was a great event, and I really appreciate those teachers. So now we're waiting for the Tennessee Department of Education to know if our nominees will win at the state level. So we're very confident, and we wish them the best of luck. Also, we're so proud of Woodell High Cardinals for winning the first AA state championship. Congratulations to Principal Clayton, Coach Lawson for this great achievement. These athletes are not only excellent on the basketball court, but they are also shining students in the classroom. Go Cardinals. District 9. I also want to remind everyone that the 10th anniversary Arts Fest is taking place this Saturday, March 31st from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Hollering Center. And also, the 2019 very special Arts Fest is April 3rd through the 5th at Lindenwood Christian Center. These are two amazing events, support our students and the arts. Lindenwood Christian Church, yes, sir. Last week, Dr. Burt shared the process that we implemented for the principal selection related to the iZone model, which you know is a state-approved intervention model. This is a very rigorous process led by the iZone team, so we can ensure proven track principals are identified to serve in these schools. The 5 main levers for school turnaround include teaching and learning, culture and climate, alignment of staff, systems and operations, and personal leadership. Our intended outcome for the iZone is to move at least 50% of ACS managed schools off the state's priority list, which includes the bottom 5% of schools in the state, and or these with a 2016-17 graduation rate below 67%. In the upcoming weeks, we will be meeting with various community leaders to learn about their vision for the school and provide leaders with a set of community resources they can implement to support students and families. We will be providing you with more information as we continue in this process, but let me say, the iZone process is very transparent. And also, let me say, I don't think we deviated or changed anything from last year. Is that correct, Dr. Burke? Correct. So this process is the same process we've used in years past. Is anything new?
4-step layer that all candidates must go through throughout the interview process.
All right, thank you. Now I will turn over to Dr. Burke, who will be doing this month's KPI presentations focused on K-3 academic progress. He will not only be reporting on the data, but will be sharing some details and strategies in place to address some opportunities to improve student outcomes. I ask that you hold questions until the end. Dr. Burke.
Thank you, Superintendent Ray. So this presentation focuses on priority 1, which is early literacy. So if we look at priority 1, KPI 3 is the first grade reading and math measure. Priority 1, KPI 4 deals with second and third grade reading and math measure. And priority 1, KPI 8 focuses on the Lexile levels for all grades. But the heavy emphasis for this presentation will be grades K through 2. The metrics in this presentation are based on the winter map for this school year. We're focusing on 3 big areas: median growth percentile. Median growth percentile measures the average SCS student's performance in regard to how all students are performing nationwide. Second area is the percent projected on track and mastered. So last year, NWA, MAP, they did a linking study. The linking study basically is their reliability on how well students that take MAP, how well they perform on the 10-rated exam. And the final measure is the mean Lexile score. And basically what the Lexile score is, it measures the average level of text complexity for all SCS students based on their particular grade level. As we dig into the data, early signs show that SCS students' median growth percentile in reading improves slightly this year, but still falls shy of the national average. The national average, if you look at the line that's going across, the national average is at the 50th percentile, but you can see based on the 3-year trend that we're slightly below in kindergarten this school year for that national average. All other grades, looking at first grade and second grade, first grade this year 44 percentile, second grade the 41st percentile. So that speaks to some of the concerns that you've heard throughout this school year around the gap that begins in first grade and that spreads from first through second grade. Also to the right on this particular slide shows where we are in regard to math. We are in a better position in math as compared to ELA as a whole. The next slide focuses on the percent of students that is performing in the bottom quartile, the bottom 25th percentile. You can see that reading levels for students in math increased slightly throughout this school year as compared to the previous school year. So you'll see a slight uptick this year in reading as in regard to the previous school year. And to the right, you'll see how our students are performing in math across the last 3 years. When we think about our students as far as percentages of students in quartiles by reading skills, this shows the importance of why we're recommending an early literacy policy. If we look at the slide in detail, we pay close attention to the areas that are in red or in yellow, we see those two areas are low and low average. And we think about where our kids are falling in kindergarten and first grade. There's approximately 44% of kindergarten and first grade students that's scoring in the low and low average realm just for reading and vocabulary acquisition. In contrast, approximately 54% of second and third grade students scored low and low average in all reading skills. So it goes back to what we know to be true. If you can't read and you can't read based on the components of reading, you go from one grade to the next still not being able to read. Projected on-track mastery on 10 Ready. We know that we've had a slight uptick in ELA from 21.4 to 26.5% of third graders performing on-track and mastery. This slide shows you based on MAP winter benchmark assessment where our kids would perform. One thing to remember when you factor in the winter benchmark assessment, there's a lot of interruptions because it's the second quarter of the school year. So that test is normally given around the holiday break, Christmas. You got to factor in that's when weather changes, and kids, for the most part, it's a drop on the winter as compared to the spring. The spring is always given, like our spring window is always late February into March, so you'll see a more of an uptick as far as attendance and overall performance on the spring benchmark assessment as a whole. The average SCS student Lexile score. Lexile is what basically every parent wants their kids to be reading on Lexile. There's a recommended Lexile range that's a common thread across grade levels of where kids should be in regard to that particular age and that particular grade. This slide shows, based on the 4 grades, kindergarten, first, second, and third, where a majority of our students fall in regard to the average Lexile scores by grade over the course of these 3 years. Based on the previous slide, we want to provide more context around. So you see it's scatter plot. If you look, the first set in blue is the 16-17 school year. In the orange color, that's 17-18, and 18-19 is in purple. In the text box, you'll see the average Lexile range. So that's the range for every kindergartner, first grader, second grader, and third grader. The further along we go, you look at the gap between where kids should be and where kids actually are. And if you look at particular grades, you'll see why the early intervention, early intentionality around K through 2 is so important. This slide shows some of the actual recommendations that we've talked about previously around second grade policy, around literacy laureates, around really having a true phonics-based program that focus on kids being able to read and also learning the acquisition skills that encompass with reading. We also have where we're outlining a paraprofessional being in the second grade as a whole to focus on supporting those students that may fall into the tier 3 range. To really show the connection and how we're being intentional about this work, we don't want to think about it from the lens of K through 12, but we want to think about it through the lens of pre-K through 12. So April's KPI will focus on how are we really supporting kids that walk into our pre-K classrooms. There's been a huge investment not only from local government but state government around universal pre-K. That's beginning to be a huge national trend. So we really want to jump out in front to show the bridge between pre-K and how pre-K students are really supposed to walk into kindergarten, not only kindergarten ready, but really trending towards first grade readiness as well. And this is for all board members' context to show the actual Lexile levels for students based on grade. And if you look at the previous slide, it shows the work that we really have to focus on. But if you pay close attention, our kids in kindergarten are not that far off. It's what we have to do when kids walk into first grade and every grade beyond first grade. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burke.
Mr. Orgel?
Superintendent, when you were not superintendent, we had a meeting, I think Mr. Burt, Dr. Burt, Dr. Whitelaw. Didn't we three of us have a meeting?
Sure. Yes.
So can you go back about 2 or 3 slides? Right, the one before that. Okay. So if you drew a line on all those graphs, it would be like, it looked like this, which is going down. You took the 3 years, you got a downward trend. So if you related that to anything, sales, I mean, you were in sales for a long time, stock market, if you looked at it,
right,
or people's 401ks or their pensions. I mean, you look at the graph like that, that's not a good graph. And if you put a ruler across it or something. So whatever we're doing, we need to do it differently.
Right.
And so, because you got a 3-year track, and I told y'all that the day that we're seeing that we got to get back to basics. Kevin joked with me earlier about literacy, not joking because it's very serious, but that how important it is. And I always contend, I'm not a teacher, that you can't do well in math if you can't read the math problem.
Right.
So I always question even some of this, unless people just have an innate ability and understand the math, that how they can do better unless it's simple arithmetic and math than they do in English, because you got to be able to read to do the math and understand and comprehend the problem. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it is, I don't know if it's even a more specialized summer reading program that if you're reading below grade, and I think I suggest that to you, that we can expend the money. We've got to. I mean, it's not a question of should we. I mean, we've got to expend the money and pay the people. It can't be all volunteers. It's got to be professionals, and do something so we break out of this cycle, because your graph's going like that. So that means that in 4th grade, and you didn't show 4th grade, but that's not what you were reporting, and I understand that. The graph even goes further. And then eventually, because I think I remember there was a slide in there, was a slide before, you get to 21% of our seniors can read. And what's even worse than that is that's not all the people that start 9th grade. And those children that don't continue on, they more than likely cannot read, and that's why they quit going to school. So it's even worse. It's just we're only grading the people that are still there by the time they get to seniors. So your graph looks like this. And Dr. Ray, I know you and your staff are committed to your graph going up like that. So
absolutely, Mr. Orgel. Absolutely. That's why step number 1 in the 7 next steps is academic equity in action. And I think we're bringing a robust plan, pre-K through 12. We're really focusing on 3rd grade guarantee, as I call it, to ensure all students reading at or above grade level by the time they're 3rd grade. Also the work we're doing in CCTE, high school work, just really focusing on our students being college ready. That's so important. So we're going to be very aggressive, very bold, and the academic plan really address all your concerns. Thank you, Mr. Orwell.
Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Superintendent, have we ever taken a look at this data and separated, because you mentioned kind of, Dr. Burt, around the correlation with absenteeism and student performance, yet we're seeing the data combined. Have you ever pulled out, let's say, students that are attending school 90% of the time as opposed to students with high absenteeism to see if there's a correlation there?
That particularly teased out like in this presentation.
No, not in this
but
presentation.
we can tease it out. We haven't looked at it.
So if we haven't done that, so here's where I struggle just a little bit. That when we bring in, and I always try to just give a counter to the data that we're looking at. So Mr. Orgel made the point that it's a downward trend and we need to do something different. And I'm sure you're going to do that, and Dr. Ray just mentioned bringing back a new plan, likely what calls for a new investment. But if we don't say, okay, well, because MAP scores, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Ray, you can see who the kids are, right? You can drill down to the specific student,
yes,
to the specific classroom, to the specific teacher, right? So you can get very granular around the data. So what if you took out, so let's say that the point you made, because we used to, a couple years ago, we were arguing, particularly around iZone, that maybe there's a correlation with longer school days. You saw longer school days led to higher performance. I know we couldn't just tease out that one point, but we were saying perhaps that was one of the reasons for higher performance. Mr. Orgel just made the point around truancy and about whether or not our kids are attending school. If there is a correlation that kids that show up 90% of the time are scoring much better than kids who are not showing up, and that's just a guess, then you bring this new investment, it's around curriculum, then perhaps the investment should have been around grabbing buses and going to pick up kids. Because I think it starts just by being there. But we got to see the data there that supports that first. So not rhetorical statement, Dr. Ray, not even a question, but I ask that we also look at it, because the MAP scores allow us to do so. I want to know if my kids showed up every day to that school. Does it fall on the priority list? Or simply because I'm not showing up, that's why I'm on the priority list. The chicken or egg concept, and we just need to know. I think there's an opportunity to know which comes first. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
So we definitely can give you that context because we have that context now. So part of the thinking around why we know we needed teeth with the policy is we also operate from a platform where we deal with high mobility. That means a kid may move from multiple schools throughout the school year, average from 4 to 6. Some principals know every January they got to prepare for 40 to 60 new students. So with that, we're right now focusing on the bottom 15% of students for RTI. So the student that you just described will be in our Tier 3 RTI, meaning they're probably underperforming, they probably need intensive support, but in a lot of instances, it's to no fault of their own, they're not getting to school by things they can't control. That begins in our schools, in kindergarten and first grade. So the population that's always heavily affected is kindergarten and first grade. The correlation that you see on this screen is the gap begins in first grade. So if I'm missing 40 days out of 180, I'm getting behind. If I also walk in with a language acquisition, not having the vocabulary that another student have, I'm further behind. So we're always playing catch up as a district. To go back to Mr. Orgel's statement, that's why that policy is bold. That's why the policy says if you don't have 8 out of the 12 criteria of success, it's mandated you go to summer school. If you don't achieve those in summer school, you only have the first 45 days to get them. Otherwise, you have to repeat the entire grade again. That's the only way you're going to change academic outcomes, because we deal with mobility at an alarming rate than what a lot of cities experience. The only city that's probably comparable to us would probably be Detroit after the recession and the crisis.
But to add to that, Mr. Woods, professional development for our teachers, quality professional development is the key as well, and giving teachers the skills and and all the necessary tools they need to move the needle with our students.
Ms. Love?
Thank you. I think Board Member Woods made an excellent point, which is another reason, I'm going to state it again, that parent piece is so very important. If we have, based on what Board Member Woods stated, if we have a high number of students who are not coming to school, who therefore can't receive that instruction, the parent piece is going to be needed ASAP, so that we can find out what the challenges are, so we can make sure that we're supporting those families so the students can be in school. Because we're well aware in elementary, it is on the parents. But if we're not touching the parents and getting them to understand and buy into education, we're never going to move the needle where it needs to be moved.
So, thank you, Ms. Lowe. We are aligning to work with family and community engagement, so I've charged Dr. Phillips to do just that.
Superintendent, I did have a question about, as you're doing these MAP tests for those students, where you can tell at winter and spring whether or not you're predicting what they will, where they will be for our state assessment. How are you tracking teachers who are teaching those, to drill down to other board members' points? How are you drilling down to the teachers in particular classrooms where you see that trend really moving downward? So I think the same way that we're mapping how students are performing, we also need to be really supporting those teachers where you see these larger dips for that first grade, for that second grade. So I understand. Let me get to my point.
Sure.
So I understand the need for additional PD for those teachers. But where we used to say you had to have the strongest teachers in third grade, and maybe you didn't have your bench strength in the first and second grade, or kindergarten first and second grade, I do want to see how the district is addressing drilling down to those teachers that you do know need the additional PD. And it isn't just you're going to require them to go to additional session, but if they're not the right people in those positions where you are saying that we have upward ticks because those kids are going to pre-K, and then as soon as they get to first grade, we have the downward spiral, I do think that there needs to be a correlation with that. And we need to review that in deeper.
So we want the best teachers pre-K through 12, not just in certain grades. So Dr. Burke, can you expound on that?
We've done in collaboration with our HR team, myself, Dr. Whitelaw, Chief Small, we've really been focusing on how can we really support our teachers around targeted areas that may be identified as deficit. So you'll see identified tracks this upcoming school year based on where that teacher falls from a growth and achievement perspective, but also a content perspective. Based on the track, they'll have identified support that they'll be provided and pushed in support as well. The other piece that we're looking at is we have to call out the K2 piece when we're talking about how do we support teachers from a formative perspective when we're doing walkthroughs. That's one piece that we're looking at. How can we support that going forward to really make sure we're supporting teachers around the foundational skills aspect.
See no other questions. Is at the end of your presentation?
Yes, I just want to thank and welcome the Reverend Al Green, and I appreciate you.
General Counsel's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No report.
Okay. We're moving on to proposed policies. New board business. We're moving on to proposed policies. First reading.
Ms. Stewart.
Board members, for first reading tonight, we have 3 policies. The first is 3008, safe drinking water. That's a new policy based on statutory requirements. 4017, suspension, dismissal of teachers. That's a current policy with revisions based on revisions to the law, as well as 5013, promotion and retention.
Seeing no lights, there is an action required for first reading. We're moving on to consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Ms. Love?
I would like to remove agenda item 11.9.
Ms. Bibbs?
11.10.
Mr. Woods? And Superintendent, you had two items that you were moving from consent to go to action, is that correct?
Yes, I think we had the wrong cost or total, 11.34 and 11.36.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
With the amendments, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda from Mr. Woods and a second from Mr. McCormick. Can we get a roll call vote?
Board
Yeah,
Member
I'm
McKissick.
sorry. Let me read them into the record and then we can move forward. I'm sorry. 11.2, Relay Graduate School of Education, dollar amount of $216,000. 11.3, Learn Zillow Platform and Professional Development High School ELA Curriculum, in the amount of $285,500. 11.4, Fund 1 Playground Installations, Brownsville and Roselle Elementary Schools, in the amount of $149,989.42. 11.5, Phase 1 Playground Installation, Goodlet, Lawrence, Oak Haven, and Westside Elementary Schools, in the amount of $297,590.08. 11.16, Xanadu Printed Materials for High School Students, ELA, $918,889.32. 11.7, K5 EL Education Materials, $1,039,913.65. 11.8, Trauma Informed Schools, in the amount of $12,000. 11.12, Network Cabling, in the amount of $2,500,000. Oh, I'm sorry. 11.11, Special Course Applications. 11.13, Procurement, USDA Commodity Process Commercial Equivalent Items for 1920 school year, $14,152,065.93. 11.14, Goodlet Elementary 21st Century School 21st Century Furniture, $1,550,000. 11.15, HVAC Highland Oaks, ES Damon Marcus, $2,085,583. 11.16, HVAC Whitehaven, High School, Damon Marcus Company, $1,182,454. 11.17, HVAC Piping Sheffield High School, Morgan and Thornburg, $1,653,800. 11.18, HVAC Sheffield Shrine Elementary School, Morgan and Thornburg Mechanical, $1,379,000. 11.19, HVAC Raleigh Bartlett Meadows Elementary School, Damon Marcus Company, $306,104. 11.20, HVAC Holmes Road Elementary, Morgan and Thornburg Mechanical, $1,129,800. 11.21, HVAC Booker T. Washington, Morgan and Thornburg, $3,397,000. 11.22, Grahamwood Elementary, Martin and White Mechanical, $644,609. 11.23, HVAC E.E. Jeter, K8, Bernard MCC LLC, $947,508. 11.24, Authority to Demolish Vance Middle School. 11.25, Kirby High School Emergency Purchases, $3,297,307. 11.26, Authority to Surplus and Demolish Graves Elementary School and Rains Haven. 11.27, SES Emergency Management Classroom Preparedness Red Books. 11.29, March 2019 Budget Amendment. 11.30, March 2019 Capital Improvement Projects Budget Amendment. 11.31, conversion of Raleigh Egypt High School into middle school and high school. 11.32, merger of Hamilton Elementary and Hamilton Middle. 11.34, HVAC Oak. We removed 11. We removed 11.33. I'm at 11.34. 3.4 is also? I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, 11, I apologize. 11.35, amended procurement contracts committee charter. 11.37. The revised dollar amount is $151,500. Do we need to pull that one? Did it need to be removed? Okay, $151,500. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Green. Aye. Board Member Bibbs. Aye. Board Member Coleman. Aye. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
Consent agenda is approved. We now have moved some items to action. So we'll start with 11.9. Ms. Love, you had a question?
Somebody to move it.
Oh, okay, can we get a motion for 11.9? The one you asked. Hold on. Motion by Ms. McKissick. Can I get a second? A second by Mr. McCormick. Are there questions and or comments? Ms. Love.
Thank you, Chair. I do have several questions pertaining to the Evening Reporting Center. I did have an opportunity to go over the contract, and what I'll say is, although I am supportive of an alternative in lieu of juvenile, I'm concerned about the services that the students will receive, and I'm also concerned about with Shelby County government being responsible for juvenile court and the discipline for our children. I think it's kind of shedding a negative light, since we already know that research already shows that our African American children are not treated the same as their white counterparts when they are either arrested or they commit a crime. In the contract, it states that the behavior specialists, they will assist children with certain issues. In my opinion, because I know we have behavior specialists in the school, and I know what they're required to do and what they're not required to do, I feel that when we talk about addressing some of the social ills of our children and some of the challenges that they face, we need people who are qualified and who have a background in addressing some of the mental health challenges that our children face, not the behavior specialists. Also, when it spoke about, it stated, I believe in section 9, when it talked about the data, I'm concerned about that because in the contract it says that we are to report all data. My concern is that for far too long, people have taken the negative data of our black children and used that data to receive grant dollars, but our children still don't receive the services that they need. So I'm well aware that you may have the votes for this superintendent, but as a board member, I will not vote anymore on any contracts that do not have a plan of action of how we're going to address the issues that our children face, especially when this is a pilot project or a pilot program housed inside of the inner city, when we know that there are suburban children who have the same issues that our children have or who have other issues. So when we go into a contract with the Shelby County government where it's just singling out our inner city students, although I'm well aware of the data of the students who are already in juvenile and who are already at Jail East. But as a board member, I'm not going to support this for the reasons that I've stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Love. I just want to address a couple of issues. I think this was put in place to do just what you're getting at, trying to keep the students out of the Juvenile Justice Center. I think we were approached maybe a year or so ago about the evening centers to give students the opportunity to come to receive therapeutic treatment and not to transition into our juvenile justice system. So Ms. Matthews is here. If you can get to some of Ms. Love's questions in a brief way to talk about the centers, talk about what services students are going to receive, to really talk through the behavior specialists and training. Maybe because I really want Ms. Love comfortable.
Thank you, Superintendent. Just to address your concerns very briefly, there's an academic component, a recreational component, and lots of different components to the programming of the Evening Reporting Center. In the contract, it does, or in the proposal, it did specifically state that there would be a behavior specialist on site to be able to provide programming for the students along with teachers and other staff members, but there is no problem with contracting or working with our mental health clinicians in order to service students in the program. Most of the employees in the program will be part-time employees because the program operates in the afternoon. So it's absolutely doable to make some concessions for having our mental health clinicians to work part-time to be in the program as well.
Ms. Love?
Okay, thank you for that. But in my opinion, it's still based on what I saw in the contract. Now, if there's something else, based on what I saw in the contract, it's still not going to address the challenges that our children face. We have academics in high school, either 7 to 3 or 8 to 4 or whatever time school starts. And one thing that I didn't see in here that I didn't mention before is in order to change the mindset of our children, we have to connect to the parent. It does not matter what you pour into that child between the hours of 4 and 8 p.m. When they go home and that lifestyle is still the change, that means still the same, we are still not servicing the whole family. And Dr. Ray, when we talk about social and emotional learning and services provided for our children, I just feel like we're not addressing the piece. We're putting a Band-Aid, like somebody stated, we're putting a Band-Aid on cancer and not trying to figure out why the person has cancer. So I'm like I said, I don't want our children to be sent to juvenile court. I don't want that. I'm just saying, as a board member, I can't support something when there is not a plan of action in place of how we're going to address the problem.
So Ms. Matthews, to really, can you put together a detailed plan of looking at the root causes and not the symptoms? We know the symptoms, how the children get to the evening reporting system. To really get to the root causes and how we're addressing the root causes. Dr. Phillips, I want a detailed plan around how we're going to engage families in the evening reporting centers, because Ms. Love makes a great point. I don't think the contract goes deep into the amount of work that's going to happen in the evening reporting centers. So what we're trying to figure out with these particular students, we're trying to figure out what's the hurt, and we're trying to also deter them to reoffending. And I'd rather for us as Shelby County Schools get an opportunity to help students rather than the Shelby County Sheriff's Department.
Thank you, Superintendent. I would love to share the scope of work that is attached to the contract, and I've already connected with Chief Phillips to add the
Thank you.
component.
Can you prepare and maybe discuss it in an academic committee meeting?
Absolutely.
Seeing no other lights, roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
No.
Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Green. Aye. Board Member Bibbs. Aye. Board Member Coleman. Aye. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 8 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative.
That motion passes. Moving on to 12 And for the listening public, the items that were removed from consent have now been added to board docs, so the numbers have changed as I read them out. 12.1 is a resolution of the Shelby County Board of Education in opposition to vouchers. And so can I get a motion and then a second, and then we can read into move.
Motion.
A motion by Ms. Love, second by Mr. McCormick. And Ms. Love, if you could read the resolution into the record, please.
A resolution of the Shelby County Board of Education in opposition to vouchers. Whereas the Shelby County Board of Education is responsible for providing a local system of public education, and whereas Shelby County Schools provides a wide range of academic and extracurricular opportunities focused on the educational development and overall growth of all students to prepare them for success in learning, leadership, and life. And whereas more than 50 years have passed since private school voucher programs, also known as opportunity scholarships, education savings accounts, tax credit scholarships, or similar terms, were first proposed, and during that time, proponents have spent millions of dollars attempting to convince the public and lawmakers of the concept's efficacy. And whereas studies indicate that vouchers have not been effective at improving student achievement or closing the achievement gap, which the most credible research findings little to no difference in student performance by way of voucher or public school. And whereas many proponents argue that voucher programs increase options, and yet 5 decades later, these programs still remain controversial, unproven, and unpopular. And whereas Shelby County Schools provide several options for students, including charter, optional, international, bachelorette, and other traditional schools. And whereas the Constitution of the State of Tennessee requires that the Tennessee General Assembly provide for maintenance, support, and eligibility standards of a system of free public schools, with no mention of the maintenance of support of private schools. And whereas pending legislation before the Tennessee General Assembly would create a voucher program that will in part allow public dollars to pay for tuition and fees at participating private schools, fees for transportation to and from a participating school or educational provider, or a fee for service transportation provider, tuition and fees at an eligible post-secondary institution, and textbooks required by an eligible post-secondary institution. And whereas the proposed legislation does not address the issues of poverty and other inequities faced by low-achieving students or the academic, social, and emotional needs of students. And whereas rather than providing equal access to high-quality education, the proposed voucher program will essentially divert funding from school districts and individual schools with high rates of poverty that are already under-resourced. And whereas Tennessee ranks in the bottom 10 states for school spending per pupil, U.S. Census Bureau, and does not provide adequate funding for the basic education program, and any diversion of needed resources under a voucher program would further diminish the ability for Tennessee public schools to meet mandated accountability standards and address achievement gaps among students. Now therefore be it resolved that the Shelby County Board of Education does hereby oppose any legislation or other similar efforts to create a voucher program in Tennessee that would divert money intended for public schools to private schools. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution should be delivered to the governor, the lieutenant governor, the Speaker of the House, and every member of the General Assembly. Submitted by myself, Stephanie Love. Thank you.
Seeing no lights, I do want to say that I wholeheartedly support the resolution. Again, I think that we do a disservice to our kids when we divert funds from public education in order, when we are, as Ms. Love stated in the resolution, under-resourced as a district and serve some of the most disenfranchised students within the county and in the state. So I wholeheartedly do support this resolution. Roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Green. Aye. Board Member Bibbs. Aye. Board Member Coleman. Aye. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 8 votes in the affirmative.
Motion passes. 12.2, the 2019-20, 2020-21 academic calendars. Can I get a motion? A motion by Mr. McCormick. Can I get a second? A second by Miss Green. I'm going to lobby it, Miss Bibbs, and Miss Green read into
On
the
the record.
record as a second. Okay, Miss Bibbs?
Thank you, Chair. So I actually pulled this from the consent agenda because it seems to be a very hot topic, and I think we need to just make sure as we move forward around what the calendar will look like. So I'm just going to ask my colleagues around, saying that, you know, we've had a lot of conversation around B. So I think if we decide as a body tonight to go with B, let's just do 1920. So then we could see the results from the first 6 months of 1920. And then that way, before we decide on 2021, we can use those results in the planning of, it will start December or January of next year, 2020, and then decide on what 2021 will look like as a compromise. Because I think we've heard.
Your motion is to divide the question.
Yes, to divide the question, but I'm also just saying, more importantly, the whole point, if we go with B for 1920, let's really look at the data. Let's see, if we're saying with that first 6 months, we'll probably have, if I'm correct, anywhere from about 4 to 5 half days already within those first 6 months of the year. It also will have those PD hours, and we'll also see how schools are being supported in order to use those half days. If we use that data, then we can be able to use that to justify why we would do it again.
So the motion to divide the question, and this is just to approve the 2019-2020 instructional calendar.
Correct.
B. Can I get a second? Second by Ms. Love. I'll now take questions or comment.
Actually, the motion to divide the question is not debatable.
Oh.
You're either going to divide it or you aren't.
Oh.
And it'll be two separate questions if you agree to divide it.
But the So we just need a roll call vote and then we can come back. Yes. Yes, you can ask a procedural question.
So just procedurally, if we divide the question, then what do we do with each year? So then we're going to vote on each year, up or down?
If you divide the question, they become two separate questions. You will vote on the first one, whether you want 1920 adopted. Then you vote on the second one, whether you want 2021 adopted.
Gotcha.
And if people will comment on the previous motion, because
Isn't before us right now.
okay, so parliamentarian, I do want to make sure that board members get to weigh in. So tell me how we make sure board members' voices are heard in deciding about 2019, 2020. So give me direction.
If you divide the question, then it will come back before you as a main motion for 1 year, and you can speak on that. That is debatable under your standard order of debate.
Okay.
Then you'll talk about the second one if you want to.
Okay.
But you handle them one at a time, just like it's two separate items.
But I have
Okay,
a
so
question before we decide about dividing
procedurally,
it.
yes. You want to have
May
a
I ask
procedural question?
Madam Chair? Yes. Oh, just in terms of if we're already dividing them up, then my question was about whether or not the impact of, is there enough data just from 6 months, or do we need 2 academic school years in which to determine whether or not, you know, that it's effective?
So right now, we're just talking about the division of the question, as the parliamentarian has just stated. And I think we will have to go back to the main motion in order to be able to discuss 19, 20 to 20. As soon as we get through this.
Well, Madam Chair, I called the question so we can vote on dividing the question.
Okay. Roll call vote. This is on the division of the vote. On the division of the question. Division of the question.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orwell. Aye. Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Green. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
Okay. And so, parliamentarian, we are now on the motion of 19.
No, it doesn't have to be made. It's already made. It's now two separate questions. It's already been moved and seconded. take the first one.
Okay, and this is on 2019 to 2020.
2019 to 2020 is.
2019 to 2020.
Yep.
I'm going to get it right. We're not
That's
in the
what's in front of you right
we're not
now.
1900s anymore. 2019 to 2020. I'm saying 19 and you're saying 19 behind. We're saying 2019 to 2020. We're not in the 1900s anymore.
All right. People want to talk on this.
Yes. 19 and 20. Okay. Ms. Love.
Thank you. So I do support splitting the calendars up by the year. Just one suggestion, when this process happens next year, I just ask that the community and the board is engaged at the same time. I do believe that community should have an input. I just don't want to be put in a situation as a board member where we've engaged, where the administration has engaged the community and they have pretty much voted on a calendar and then it was brought to us. I just ask next year both processes are done at the same time and that the communication and feedback is given to board members while the community process is taking place.
That's fair, Ms. Love. We'll definitely do that. So we didn't change the process from years past, so that's something we can make adjustments.
Ms. McKissick?
My concern, two things. First, in terms of the schedule and the calendar, some of the concerns that I've heard from the community is that, you know, at waiting till a late hour because people do plan out their lives. I'm not one of them, but they plan out their lives many months in advance, and so they want to know what's coming up. So if we are going to break this up, if it ends up being like that, to make sure that we have this process early on in the academic school year, just so that people can make those plans. But in terms of deciding, you know, whether or not we're going to look at just 6 months of data to determine whether or not it's been effective, I question whether or not you can really do that in 6 months. I mean, that's not a long amount of time when you're talking about, you know, data with students and to see a pattern. So that's why if we, you know, if you look at it from just 2 years worth of data and then going from there, that's just, I just question whether or not you can really determine anything in just 6 months' time.
Ms. Bibbs?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just say this. So we're not looking at academic data. What we're looking at is within 6 months, have kids shown up to school? You would know that immediately. So I think that's been the apprehension, the feedback that I've been getting, not only from parents in my district, but also just other board colleagues that have come to me around what the process was. You're absolutely correct. I think when we start this process earlier, we wouldn't be here today. So that's what I think, if by splitting the question, we'll be able to say within, starting from August probably to October or the end of November, you'll know have kids been to school on half days. You'll know have schools been supported in the way that they said that they will be supported around those half days. You also will know around what's the feedback from certain schools around what does that programming look like for them. And that's the information we need in order to plan out an effective calendar moving forward. That's all I'm saying. I think that's actually what you need in order to have a well-prepared calendar, and then be able to take that feedback to administration and teachers around this is what the district looks like as a whole. And that's the thing that I think we missed during this calendar process this time.
Ms. Love? Superintendent, I can support just 1 year of the calendar with the caveats of really looking at the data. I'm concerned about the 8 half days. I am, and that's the feedback that I have gotten from teachers. I have had, you know, administrators. I am concerned about the 8 half days. But I think if the administration can show that this was an effective use of making sure that you had more teachers who have the PD time needed, if we're saying that we're not going to have a large decline in attendance of our students, and I'm just going back to our conversation yesterday in our audit, budget, and finance, where we're talking about right now 88 days are down and we're going to receive less funding from the county. I want to make sure that those things are not impacted. When we talk about kids not coming to school, then it impacts the amount of money that we are receiving in funding to support current services. So I do want to make sure that if we're going to move forward with 1920 Calendar B, that we do have data from the district that provides us a way of making a more informed decision. I feel very exposed saying right now, these are some supposeds that we're going to do during October, during fall break, and spring break, and summer break. Those things are not really hashed out clearly to me. And so we're taking a leap of faith with the district that these things are going to work out in a way that you are predicting. So I think an informed decision is always a better decision. And if the district is saying that this is a way they want board members to support them, then I can do that for 1 year.
Thank you, Chair Ava. I really appreciate all the spirited comments. For us to move the needle, if we continue to do the same thing, we'll get the same results. And so, you know, I do, if the board chooses to split, and I'm very well fine with that, to have the 1 year. I appreciate the board really having confidence and giving us an opportunity just to try this calendar. But with that being said, you know, right now our students are in school for 180 days. They have a certain amount of half days. The problem, teachers not attending PD well, because PD, you know, you must schedule on a Saturday, you must schedule in the summer. And right now, I'm not certain, and our teachers are doing their best, but without the high quality PD, I don't trust that, you know, instruction for 180 days will be at its optimal level. And so what I'm trying to do is, A, listen. B, we're trying to put forth the calendar to really get students more days, if you will, the intercession periods. I think the staff has really put forth the effort in the intercessions in the fall and in the spring, much like the Summer Learning Academy, which was one that I think we started. I think Superintendent Hobson and you had a conversation, and Superintendent Hobson came to cabinet and said, Dr. Ray, it was like middle of March, to say he wants a Summer Learning Academy, and I think we pulled that off just fine. So I really have faith in the staff. I have faith in our principals. I have faith in our teachers. Most of all, I have faith in our students, that we do have these half days, and I hear the board loud and clear that it will be well attended by not only students but by our teachers, and that we will look at the data, monitor data ongoing from day one of school. So, thank you.
Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I remember in a committee meeting, and yes, I did attend a committee meeting, Mike Stewart, if you're out there, and we discussed, because I have received complaints from parents who work on the half days, and to try to accommodate them for after-school care, because it's my understanding if you're not in after-school care, you can't just drop in for a day. And I don't remember if we receiving any information about how we would make accommodations for the working parents.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Last week, Dr. Whitelaw shared what we would do on half days and the partnerships that we garnered. Dr. Whitelaw, can you just share at a high level on the half days?
Yes, we've been talking to partners in the community and in the area, and we will be putting out an RFP, but we have been assured that one of the partners that we have talked with and had a discussion about, that they are willing to come into our schools and provide the after-school care for our students, and that's one way. A second way that we are also talking about, how do we support our parents, even though in some places, if we're going to have enrichment and tutoring for an extra 2 to 3 hours, hoping that parents who can take advantage of the partner that will be in that school, that they can take advantage of the enrichment and tutoring, and then by that time, hopefully be able to pick up the student, because most of our schools get out by 12:30, so we were hoping to extend it through enrichment, intervention, somewhere between 3:30 to 4, to accommodate some of our parents, and then for those who need the care until 6, we're working with a partner as well as we're putting it out for an RFP.
And also, board, I would love to see and just really talk to parents with any unreadiness. You know, we've had over 5,000 parents to say that they like Calendar B, but I would love to spend time with parents with concerns, so the staff, we can talk to them and we can reassure that, you know, we're gonna provide a quality education and whatever supports that they need for the students to be successful.
Ms. Love?
So I do have a question. Going back to Board Member McCormick's question, great question. I know that we have several community centers. So has there been conversations with the city to see if, I believe last year, year before last, during spring break, they opened up the community centers and they had activities, I believe, all day for those students. So has there been a conversation with the community centers to provide those same services during some of our half days?
Actually, we're planning to not only talk to our community centers, but also to our faith-based organizations. So we are planning, we're sending out an invite this week to invite all of our community organizations as well as our community-based programs in for a session in 2 weeks. So the invite will go out by Friday. So we already have that in our timeline to ask them to come on board, what can they offer, and help us support in the half days.
So, Doctor, maybe for you and the staff, a clarifying question about the intermissions. What is optimal attendance for an intermission session, whether it's fall break or spring break, to be beneficial to students? What are you seeing as the number of students that would need to be present, and would that be offered in every elementary, middle, and high school?
So, Dr. Whitelock, can you talk about the students we will actually encourage, and it feeds into our overall academic plan?
We are targeting our Tier 2 and our Tier 3 students in every school. So in every school, the attendance may look a little different, but that's our first target group, that we are looking for students that are functioning below grade level, and we will make sure, using MAP data, the students who need Tier 2 and Tier 3. So that's our first line of students that we're attending to first, and then we'll offer it to our Tier 1 students as well.
But also, can you talk about the high school students and around ACT? I know our students right now, the 23% of high school students get a 21 or above. Can you talk about the intercession for fall and spring for high schools?
Yes, same thing that we're in high schools. We're targeting those students, especially 9th through 11th grade, and even for our seniors who are struggling to get a 21 on the ACT, being very prescriptive about these are the things that we'll be offering to support their ACT, especially in ELA, math, and science. So those are the areas that we'll be concentrating on during that time, and teaming with, again, some of our partners who are working with us for ACT.
Let me ask the question a different way. What would be maximum optimization for the intermission program to be successful? So if you have Tier 2 until 3 students that you're encouraging to participate, what is the number, percentage-wise, that you need to actually attend the intermission for you to see it as successful, and that the decisions we've made around doing these half days, doing the calendars, and then obviously paying teachers who come in during those intermission sessions to provide the instruction and enrichment, what is the number?
Yes, and I can use 2 schools that I have for an example. For example, if I'm in an elementary school and I have exactly 125 students who are in Tier 3 and 100 students who are in Tier 2, the optimum, what we're we're sending letters out to 225 students. We're hoping at least 60 to 75% of our students show up for our fall break and spring break. So that's how we're looking at the numbers for each school. And for us, that would be our first measure of success, that we target those 225, and out of that 225, our goal is to have anywhere from 60 to 75%.
So when the district comes back to us next year, you'll be sharing with us, were you able to reach those 60 to 65% rates of attendance for each of your elementary, middle, and high schools?
Yes, for each school.
Thank you. Reverend Green?
I know we've heard from educators through MEA and other representatives tonight. I think if Destination 2025 is going to become a reality, at some point, we're going to have to allow our educators more time to attend PDs. I understand the concerns from parents, but if the calendar is issued and parents have it before school start, they always make accommodations if school is closed for weather or what have you. So I think we really need to give it a chance. If we're going to respect what they're asking us to do, if we want to work together, I trust that we're going to make a decision to accommodate and give them an opportunity, and then we can come back and look at data and see what's accomplished.
So this is on the motion before us of approving the 1920 calendar. Did I say it right, Ms. Bibbs? All right. Roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick?
Aye.
Board Member Orgel? Aye. Board Member Woods? Aye. Board Member Love?
Aye.
Board Member McCormick? Aye. Board Member Green? Aye. Board Member Bibbs? Aye. Board Member Coleman? Aye. Board Chair Avant?
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passes. Now for the, I need a motion for the 2020. We already have that. Okay. All right, so this is on approval or not? Approval of the 2021 calendar. And we split the question, so we don't have to have a motion or a second. Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I probably need a question to the parliamentarian. If we make a motion to suspend indefinitely, and you can explain to the public what that actually means, will we still be able to speak on the issue?
I think the motion you're looking for is postpone indefinitely.
Postpone indefinitely, right.
If you move to postpone indefinitely, it is debatable, and the debate can go into the original motion.
Okay.
You can talk about it, and
Fair enough.
if you vote to postpone indefinitely, you're not voting it up or down. You're
Right.
simply saying we're not going to deal with it today.
Correct. And with that, Madam Chair, my motion is to postpone indefinitely. And the request.
Requires a second.
Yeah.
A second by Ms. Bibbs.
And I'd still like to be recognized, Madam Chair.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you. So I think we've heard a lot of good points. First of all, Ms. Bibbs, your point about allowing the teachers to get exactly what they requested, what they fought for, what we communicated out very broadly, although very opposed to by our board, that process should start. Regardless if it was changed or not, Mr. Superintendent, I think that process needs to at least be seen by us before you go out and check the pulse of the public, because you put us in a position to not want to disappoint our hardest working employees, which are our teachers. So I think this is a good compromise by us approving that calendar. I also have heard from Board Member Green, her comments around making accommodations. The best way we can make these accommodations, Superintendent, is to put these calendars out as soon as possible. Mr. Orgel may not know this, but in 2025, Mr. Orgel, Passover, you know the date? April 12th through the 19th. Mr. Superintendent, during Destination 2025, Thanksgiving is going to be November 27th. And Christmas during the year 2025, as we celebrate our gains, kids can unwrap their gifts on a Thursday. We know our calendars. We know when sunset is going to set 6 months from now. We don't have to wait 2 months before school start to set these calendars. So as we look at this data, we can still bring back a 2, 3, 4, 5-year calendar for our teachers. But ultimately, I think ultimately, Superintendent, particularly why this conversation is happening around the budget process, if we were to really dig in, what teachers are saying they want is more time, but they also want to be compensated for that time. We should have been asking for new investments and allow them, if they're going to be in school, they should be compensated for it. And that opportunity was not presented to this body. So hopefully during that time, we can find a solution for that as well, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. So anytime teachers in school, they will be compensated. And then we spend time with the calendar really in doing focus groups. Doing a calendar is a very arduous process, and it takes time to go through the calendars, and it takes time to really do the focus groups. It takes time to talk to teacher groups. It takes time to talk to parent groups. It takes time to talk to principal groups. It takes time to engage the central office. It takes time, and that's why we wanted to bring a two-year calendar instead of a one-year calendar, so parents can plan, so principals can plan, so teachers can plan. So we definitely understand. So we would definitely, going forward, start earlier and adjust whatever process, for the will of the board, so that we can engage the board on the front end. And I apologize because I thought that's what we were doing, but we'll have to do a better job. And so I just direct staff that if only one calendar passes tonight, I'm going to ask staff to start the calendar process in May.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Can I get a roll call vote?
And again, the motive
This
on
is
to postpone indefinitely.
the motion before us is to postpone indefinitely.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel. Aye. Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love. Aye. Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Green. Aye. Board Member Bibbs. Aye. Board Member Coleman. Aye. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passes. Moving on to 12.4 HVAC Oak Haven Elementary School, Damon Marcus. Can I get a motion and a second? Motion by Mr. McCormick, a second by Ms. Doris Coleman. Superintendent. This is HVAC Oak Haven that the superintendent pulled.
New number 12.4, old number 11. No.
It's the HVAC Oak Haven Elementary School.
Need to refresh your screen.
Damon Marcus. That's the item before us.
Beth.
Recommendation, or?
We move this to action for
Yes.
what reason?
Because the amount on the contract didn't match the amount on the board doc, so we had to revise it.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Can I get we did have a motion already, Mr. McCormick, motion, and Ms. Doris Coleman did second. Are there any comments? This was just to clarify for the board why this action was moved, why this particular motion was moved to action. If there are no comments or questions, we're going to get a roll call vote. Roll call vote. I'm sorry?
Chair, may I clarify something with Chief Phelan for 1 second regarding the board docs?
Yes.
Make sure they all got moved down. That's gone.
My colleagues are so impatient. So, what's the amount for the contract?
It is $332,941.
And the contract, and that is what is posted in board docs? 300, okay. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick. Aye. Board Member Orgel. Aye. Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Board Member Green. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the
Motion
affirmative.
passes. We are now moving on to 12.5. Okay, let me Maxine Smith, HVAC system. Can I get a motion and a second? A motion by Mr. McCormick. Can I get a second? A second by Ms. Bibbs. This item was moved to was moved to the action agenda because the amount, I think it was different in the contract.
Same issue.
Okay, and
Yes.
what is the amount?
It's $1,206,510.
Okay. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick. Aye. Board Member Orgel. Aye. Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love. Aye. Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Green. Aye. Board Member Bibbs. Aye. Board Member Coleman. Aye. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passes. 12.8 rezonings. Can I get a motion? Motion by Mr. McCormick.
Second. Does that also, they're itemized, right?
They are not.
All right, so my motion is to divide the question.
Okay. Yes. So,
Can you withdraw your motion?
we have a motion by Mr. McCormick, which is to approve the slate. We have, which requires a second.
I'll second it.
A second by Mr. Woods. And now I'm going to recognize Mr. Woods to either ask a question or comment on this particular
Motion to divide the question to take each one individually.
It does require a second.
There's a second by Mr. McCormick to divide the question. And this is to take each of the rezonings individually. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different rezonings that are before us. The first is Southwind Elementary School, and this is again, these are divided now to vote on individually. This is Southwind Elementary School to Highland Oaks Elementary.
We have to vote to divide the question.
Okay, sorry.
It's not debatable. We vote on it right away.
They're making my job so hard tonight.
Mine too.
But I'm having a good time.
Yeah. This is not debatable. It is just to divide the question. Can I get a roll call vote?
Parliamentary inquiry?
Point of order, Mr. Orgel.
So, it seems that my colleague wants to really just divide one school out. And so, could I ask him if he would we vote on the other rezonings and then you divide out the one school?
I've attempted that strategy with our board chair, so I think she said it'll go pretty fast, but I don't think that, I would love that, but I don't think it's going to happen.
But
So yes, I would entertain that motion if that's the question that's up before us.
Do you want to comment on?
So I have a couple of schools that I plan to vote, that I don't plan to support for rezoning, Mr. Orgel. If the board would indulge me and take those schools out, I can mention those schools, and we can have 2 slated votes, Madam Chair. I don't mind, but I would, because it impacts my district, I know the pulse of my parents as well as the employees in that district. I've made it clear to the administration as well as my colleagues that this is not good timing this year for this, and I would encourage my colleagues to support me on that particular decision. So
And there are the 2 schools that you're referring to?
Yeah, I understand that, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Germantown.
Yeah, so you would take those individually, but you could, I think what Mr. Orgel is saying, you could take the rest of them as a slate if there's no objection.
And so the schools that you're referring to, there are 3? There's a Germantown Middle to Cordova, Germantown Middle to Highland Oaks, and Germantown High School to Southwind?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay,
so you'd like to change your main motion?
Are you changing your main motion, Mr. Woods, to
Yes,
ask
please.
to divide out the Germantown Middle and High School rezonings?
Correct.
And the motion is to suspend indefinitely, or it is just to vote up or down? What is the motion before us?
Motion is to divide the question.
To divide the question first, Madam Chair.
Parts.
Okay. Three part.
Part 1 is everything that's left that doesn't have the word Germantown in it. Part 2 is the first Germantown.
No,
Part 3
well,
is
why
the
wouldn't we just
second
do, can we just move the
We
three
could,
German, the
we
four
could.
Germantowns to divide it into two parts? The Germantown and then the rest of the schools.
Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay, everybody understand what's going on?
So we've divided the question, and the motion before us is to divide out the Germantown schools, and then the rest of the schools would be a part of a second vote.
Second.
Is that clear?
I've already said. I third.
Okay. Can I get your approval as a second, Mr. McCormick? Okay.
He's very compliant.
So what we have before us is we're voting on the parliamentarian. We're voting on
Division of the question.
division of the question to divide out the Germantown schools and everything else.
Yep.
Okay. That is a roll call vote. Division of the question, Germantown schools, and the rest of the slate of rezonings.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love. Board Member McCormick. Board Member Green.
You can take either
Board Member
of you
Bibbs.
one first. It doesn't matter.
Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
That's approving to divide the question. We now have before us, I'm sorry, Mr. McCormick?
I just wanted to point out, Mr. Orgel, that in the time it took us to figure out what we were doing, we could have voted on all of them separately.
You just stretched it out even more.
Way to go, Order.
All right, we are now on approval of Southwind Elementary to Highland Oaks to Southwind Elementary School, Sheffield Elementary School to Getwell Elementary School, Cape Bond Middle School to Mount Pisgah Middle School, and White Station High School to Merrill's High School. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A motion by Mr. Woods. Can I get a second? A second by Ms. Green. Seeing no lights. Out. Ms. Doris Coleman.
I just want to make it publicly known, especially to our academic team, that if this is approved from White Station to Melrose, that we put the programs at Melrose that are needed for our students, that are much wanted. It does not make sense to bring the children that are at White Station. That first thing that I'm hearing is you're going to take me back to Melrose and not offer any programs for me. I'm still waiting for the AP courses that I was told were there, the programs that are needed, and we need to be very intentional about putting in the right types of programs for the students at Melrose High School, not just throwing something in there to get the children back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doris Coleman. So I think the academic team heard you loud and clear, and we'll have those classes in place.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Board Member Green. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
All right, a motion, that motion is approved. The motion before us is the Germantown Elementary School to Cordova Elementary School, Germantown Middle School to Cordova Middle School, Germantown Middle School to Highland Oaks Middle School, and Germantown High School to Southwind High School.
Motion to postpone indefinitely.
I have a motion to postpone indefinitely. I have a second by Mr. McCormick.
And I would like to be recognized, Madam Chair.
You just make your motions from now on and then do the recognize because I can't
Madam
keep
Chair,
up.
let's get us out of here.
Mr. Woods, you are recognized.
My light was on first.
I yield to the to the gentleman to the right.
I yield to the guy to the right.
All right, thank you.
Making our meeting so
Madam Chair,
much longer.
thank you so much for allowing us to split the questions and to put before this body to postpone indefinitely. Our very brave superintendent has decided to take on this footprint work to start to look at our infrastructure needs, and with that has brought forth some rezoning, not just that's before us today, but that needs across the entire district footprint. What I noticed with this plan that the administration put a lot of great work in is that we were going to reduce schools, some at levels below 70%. While I know the superintendent was planning to hold harmless our schools, it was going to require our principals and teachers, while they were great soldiers supporting the superintendent, we knew that it was going to create additional hardships on those schools. The administration even went as far as to preventing a counter proposal to lessen that pain, but I just support this body to allow us to have more time as we do the entire footprint work. I've mentioned this to the administration. While they were right in bringing the entire plan as proposed, they also knew that I would be bringing this alternative solution, and I appreciate my colleagues supporting me in my district.
Mr. Orgo, did you want to?
He said everything I was going to say.
Ditto. Can I get a roll call vote? This is, the motion before us is to suspend indefinitely. Postpone indefinitely. I want to be very clear in my wording.
Board Member McKissick? Aye. Board Member Orgel?
Aye.
Board Member Woods?
Aye.
Board Member Love?
Aye.
Board Member McCormick? Aye. Board Member Green? Aye. Board Member Bibbs? Aye. Board Member Coleman? Aye. Board Chair Avant?
Aye.
You have 9 votes in the affirmative.
Okay. That motion does pass to suspend indefinitely. Postpone indefinitely. There are seeing no other matters before this board, the meeting is adjourned.
I earned my money. For once, I earned my money. You did earn your money.